LG, HTC, Samsung, Apple, Motorola, Microsoft. If news and rumor from any of these outlets is the kind of thing that teeters your totter, well, tune in, because the pre-MWC deluge has delivered all that. Plus, we'll be talking later in the show with the man leaving his wireless carrier for ideological reasons. All that and more on episode 082 of the Pocketnow Weekly, the once-a-week audio podcast where we discuss smartphones, tablets, wearables, and most things in between. I'm your host, Michael Fisher, editorial director at Pocketnow, and joining me for today's show, our senior editor and prepaid expert of the week, Taylor Martin. Howdy do.
Hello, and consider my teeter-tottered.
Good. Make sure your Twinkie is creamed. And here to bring us the happenings of the week is Chief News Editor Stephen Schenk, a.k.a. the dude I need to stop emailing with old news tips.
Well, that would be nice. You really had me excited for a moment there getting started that this podcast was just going to be a very slow list of all the companies involved in mobile technology. That would be a lot of fun. I could pull up Wikipedia, go for half an hour. That would be a nice, low-pressure podcast.
It would take like 45 minutes, and by the end of it, what would it be? It would be like blue.
Like all the individual divisions of Samsung Display.
Samsung Worldwide Television. No, the in-joke there was that Stephen occasionally, I don't know if Taylor knows this or not, but I occasionally will send things to Stephen that I'm like, hey, we should cover this as news because I see them in my feed or whatever. And Stephen, what do you figure? About 3 times out of 5 this happens?
And it's not even just you, so don't feel bad about it. But
right. I do it too.
Well, about 3 times out of 5, Stephen will come back and was like, yeah, I think that's pretty cool too. And then he'll drop a link to the Pocketnow story on that from like the day before. And I'm like, I should read the site more.
Yeah, I do that to him as well, but I'd say mine are only actually already written like once out of every maybe 10 emails.
Okay. Bless your heart for that, Taylor.
Yeah. We're all going to try and learn from your example, Taylor.
Exactly. That's all I'm trying to say.
Well, we have a couple announcements to get out of the way before we all have to send ourselves back to work after the podcast. So why don't we have a look at those? Would anyone like to announce or to re-announce our giveaway contest? And by anyone, I mean Stephen Schenk, because Taylor Martin says no to a lot of things.
Oh, sure. I'll have to
I'm a no guy.
The details of it here. But yes, Nexus 5. We love it. A lot of you love it. And if you like it and don't have one, you should get one from us. We're running a contest with the help of D-Brand to give away a Nexus 5 with a bunch of the company's skins. You just pop right on the back. It's not a Moto Maker or anything, but you can get a wood look. You can get a carbon fiber look. So if you're interested in participating, you should check out. Are we going to run a link to the contest in the
in the rundown? Yeah. It's in there. Yep, you can click on the link in the rundown. If it's not in the YouTube description, it means we forgot, but we'll put it in there. And it's you can.
It's started by now, right? And it's running through for how long?
It's underway, and it is running until February 13th. So what's going to happen is entering is simplicity itself. You just have to I think the bare minimum is you have to be a Twitter user because you have to be able to follow Pocketnow and D-Brand on Twitter. But you can get extra points for like retweeting stuff and for following us on Facebook and other such things. But there's no scavenger hunt. There's no complicated thing you got to do. It's just you just basically have to click a button on Twitter.
There should be a scavenger hunt.
I really should. Do you know how much of a pain those were to put together? Like they took days to like build, and then people complained that they were too complex. What's Taylor?
A fire truck just pulled up outside.
Oh, you all right?
Yeah, I don't know what's happening.
Okay.
They pulled up and everyone ran out of the truck.
All right. Well, listen, if you have to go, we understand. We can do this without you today.
I'll keep an eye on it.
Okay. Yeah.
But you might hear my dog bark because he doesn't like fire trucks.
Actually, and speaking of that, on a sort of a somber note, everyone's heard the news, but Austin Evans, our friend and the next guest on the VIP, his whole apartment complex burned down. I guess at this point it's a couple weeks ago, but that's pretty rough.
Week. He made it out with a MacBook and important documents, and that's it.
Yeah.
So he lost thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars of really nice equipment, and I hate it for him.
Yeah, if you don't know who we're talking about, it's Austin, not Duncan, on Twitter. Austin Evans does tech review videos. He's very good. He's one of the first people I met in this business. What a great guy. And he actually salvaged the experience, sort of. I mean, not entirely. How do you do that? But he actually went back to his busted, burned down apartment building the next day and shot a video kind of going through the wreckage.
Survives.
Yeah, and he was he was even more jovial than usual. Like, the guy is just, you can't keep him down. So it was really cool.
You can't.
And then some people tried to start up a fund for him, and he was like, "Guys, I had renter's insurance, I'm covered, but thank you so much. I'm not going to take any money." So he wouldn't, he's just such a great guy. So
yes, he was joking with me about not that, but just about everything else. Just minutes later, I mean, the guy's crazy.
Yeah,
in a good way, in a very
good way. Yeah,
in a positive kind of I wish I were that crazy kind of way.
Yeah. So this was an unscheduled divergence, but Austin, if you're listening, we're all thinking of you. And we have one more announcement. So enter the Nexus 5 giveaway if you want one. And you want the D-brand skins because we just reviewed the D-brand skins as well. I just posted that video yesterday. If you don't know what a D-brand skin is, it's a 3M vinyl skin. That's pretty awesome if you're into different textures on your phone. And
I can attest to their quality.
Taylor, I was just going to say, Taylor has used several. Joe Levi's used several. You like them a lot, Taylor.
I do. The one thing I don't like is kind of the lip that you get, because if you stick it on the back, it's not flush with the back. It sticks on top of the back. So you get this tiny little lip, and it's almost like putting a screen protector on the front of your phone.
You should watch my video. You should. I'd say that. I use a macro lens to show you that. I get in depth.
My bad. My bad.
No, but they're great skins, and you get 4 of them, 5 of them for free with the Nexus 5 if you win the Nexus 5. And look, only like a couple 100,000 people have entered, so you probably have a good chance at winning, right?
Oh, and Michael only tried each one of them on and then stuck it back on the paper.
That's right.
Just to see what it looked
They've
like.
only been slightly licked by this.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I licked them all and put them back. Don't worry.
They're not scratch and sniff, Michael.
Oh, they're all still sealed. You jerks.
Lovely.
The other announcement we have is just as awesome. Actually, I think a little more awesome. We give phones away all the time, but it's only so often that we win a Stitcher Award. Folks, months ago, we asked you to nominate us for a Stitcher Award. Listeners, you came in force, and you did that. We got nominated alongside some great, great shows. And then we asked you to vote for us to win, and then you did that. So alongside great, great, great podcasts like Twit's This Week in Tech, the Vergecast, and How Stuff Works Tech Stuff, we won. We won Best Tech Podcast of 2013, and it is all thanks to you. Thank you, everyone. Can we have a round of applause, gentlemen? An old-fashioned one? Yes, isn't that lovely? This is for you, listeners, not for us. We really, really, really do appreciate it. When was it the same day we did the podcast last week? It was. We had Ryan Negri on last week, and then that night, the award ceremony happened, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so I wish I could have announced it last week. This is week-old news at this point. Yeah. But it's great stuff. We made a post about it, so we just wanted to say on the air here, thank you to everyone who voted for us. And I promise as soon as our trophy comes in, I will put it on Instagram, and y'all can see.
I think this fire truck was here for a cat in a tree or something. It had to have been.
Did it leave already?
To put in or to take out of?
Fire truck came with one cat that needed to be positioned on that one spruce.
That reminds me, we should probably also say hi to any new listeners who maybe saw us after those Stitcher Awards were announced and thought, hey, we should check out this Best Technology podcast.
Should we?
Is a good call. Yes, we should, Taylor. Welcome to the show. Stephen is the practical one. I'm the one who talks too much, and Taylor is the curmudgeon who sits in the corner and says no.
No.
We have a rotating cast of 8 wild characters who come on the program, and Taylor is easily the most negative. Is that true, Taylor?
No, I'm not.
It's a trap.
I hear Taylor's voice, but I'm just seeing Grumpy Cat, and that's all I'm getting here.
Just big old frown.
No, you should imagine a professional wrestler.
That's right.
That was uncanny.
Oh, it's incredible. Taylor, what professional wrestler do you resemble? And then we'll get into tech news. Tell the crew.
Playboy Buddy Rose, apparently.
No, I did not. I've not watched wrestling, and I saw you post the picture of Playboy Buddy Rose, and boy, oh boy, you sure do look like him. Wow.
See, somebody on Twitter sent the image to me at first, and I thought that they had just photoshopped my body onto this hairy chest guy with a velvet robe. And no, actually, I just look like the guy.
Are you saying you don't own a velvet rope, Taylor?
Unfortunately, I don't. The guy's real name is
bad.
Paul Pershman.
Okay.
He passed away in April 2009.
No. Oh, that's sad.
But
I didn't know
I'm
that.
carrying on his legacy inadvertently.
Listen, we gotta find a way to use
That's
this photo
something.
like repeatedly in the podcast posts for you. Can we make him your byline photo?
I'm just going to change him on the site avatar there.
Yeah,
Yes, can we please?
we can.
Yes.
but
I thought about
only,
making him my Twitter.
only
picture.
if we get to the news first. So
Lord.
please make him your Twitter picture once a year on the anniversary of his greatest WWE win. But until then, let's dive into the news. Let's not dump into the news. Let's dive into the news, and we're going to kick it off with Android because, God, there's a lot of Android news. Steven, you want to let us know what the first item there is?
We're going to get about 60 seconds of story here.
Yeah.
Right, MWC coming up in less than 3 weeks now, and so we're very excited. All the big news that we didn't hear about at CES, hopefully we're going to learn about at MWC, and as such, we've been hearing about all these events that the various smartphone companies are scheduling. A few have sent their invitations out, and one of the ones that we're most excited about is Samsung has its Unpacked 5 event the first day of MWC, and so for a lot of people are expecting we're going to see the Galaxy S5 there. We're also wondering, what sort of event it's going to be, because looking back at the past, last year with that Unpacked in New York to announce the Galaxy S4, that was a, all, what's the term with organs, all stops pulled, balls to the wall, Broadway extravaganza. New rumor out now saying that this Unpacked Live at MWC might be the polar opposite of that. They call it very low key. It sounds like it's going to be like a podium on the stage with the Galaxy S5. A single spotlight goes on for a minute, shows you the phone, turns off, and that's over.
And then you leave. Yeah.
Exactly. Herd everyone out the door. No one gets to see it.
That would
Maybe
be
not that bad.
brilliant.
It actually-
Only because,
Yeah.
that would be brilliant because everybody would go nuts. Like, what is this? What was that? Why is that? Like, the whole industry would be on its head.
This sounds a lot like what they did for the Note 3, because I was at the Galaxy S4 launch event in the spring of last year, and of course it was it was tap dancing boy, it was 1950s archetypes of housewives and ridiculous performances, and we've talked a lot about that. And I think Samsung took the notes that they got from the Twitter backlash and made the Galaxy Note 3 event at IFA much more reserved. But it wasn't boring. They brought back the fellow whose name I always forget to host that one.
Yeah, with the big white
bald
glasses.
guy?
Yeah, with the big white glasses. He hosts the tech show in the UK. He's very well known. He's so well known, and every single time I mention him, I forget his name. Jason G, perhaps. We will look that up, and I will sound like less of an idiot. I'm sorry, I sound uninformed as to his identity, but he's an entertaining host, and they brought him back, and so that was kind of the spice of the show. But the rest of it was very conventional. They had executives on stage to talk about the features of the device. They showed off the Note 3, they showed off the gear, and then it was done. It wasn't, a giant hacking mess.
I kind of liked the big extravaganza with the S4. I mean, it was hokey and. I'm not saying I want to be there necessarily, but I appreciate the showmanship.
To me, it kind of came off as almost like an illusion of grandeur. Like, it's
like we're doing this because the phone itself isn't that interesting on its own.
So on paper, the idea sounded right. You're talking about the S4 event, Taylor?
Yeah. Because it's like this huge event and show for a phone.
No, exactly. But the phone can do so much. So on paper, it makes sense, right? This phone can do like 40 things. So let's show every conceivable like event in your lifetime that you might be using this phone. So we're going to go.
Well, it's like an infomercial. They want to show you all the features in like 10 minutes.
Right, which is very challenging to do. And when you decide to do it in a kind of a bombastic and flamboyant way, you run a very big risk of pushing it too far. And I think that's what they did. I mean, it was, for me at least, it just went well beyond entertaining and into horrible schmaltzy shtick, and I hated it so hard. I just wanted to leave halfway through. But so the Note 3 event was not like that, and I actually liked it a lot better. So I am heartened by this news. I like this low-key rumor that the New York Times dug up. and that we reported on. So I guess we'll see. We should tell everyone that we're going to be covering it at Barcelona. Anton and Jaime will be there. And simultaneously, Adam Lane and I will be covering it from New York City. So you will have a ton of Galaxy S5 videos. And hopefully, Stephen, are we going to see the Galaxy Gear 2 at this one or no?
That's what they've been saying.
Well, I hope they are right.
Yeah.
Because I want to see the Galaxy Gear 2 right quick. And since they kicked out the first one in about like 72 hours, I think they could. They've had enough time to cook
Soup to nuts. Yeah, I'm curious what could really change about this thing. I mean, for my money, the big problem is the battery and the software, and neither of those seem big enough to. And what?
Taylor Martin?
What? The camera.
Yeah, there you go.
But what are you going to do with the camera? That's
optical image stabilization.
Yeah, put a big old 1020 module on there. Make the camera word bigger. No, I think the camera profile can be slimmed down a little bit. That's all. I mean, yeah, but no, you're right. But the battery life has been ameliorated. The concerns have been ameliorated thanks to the software update. I mean, you can make it 3 days on the thing now, 4 days. It's not quite a pebble, but
No.
And what was the other thing you said?
At the stop. I mean, the compatibility, it sucks, but that's not going to change, so...
Well, it might, actually. Samsung
Really?
did, when they announced the Gear initially, they actually, Ryan Biden actually said that, eventually, we'll open this up to non-Samsung devices. Like, they're actually quoted as saying that.
Did they? There was one quote I remember that everyone was reporting about in that light, but when you looked at it, it wasn't quite as strong a commitment as some people seem to believe.
Are they going to compare this one to unripe fruit? Unripe fruit?
Unripe fruit?
Unripe
Galaxy
fruit.
Gear 2 is
PR
the slightly less green tomato. Yeah.
We left it in a bag in a closet for a few days.
Well, let's talk about other things that are happening at MVC. Unless Taylor, you were making some sound as though you suddenly realized something you wanted to talk about.
I did.
Yeah, you did.
You could hear the light bulb turning on above his head. Is that
He has this intuition when I'm thinking he knows.
I do.
Actually, I do this kind of like...
Yeah, exactly. And then I'm like, yes, we'll come back to you, sir. Well, when you remember it, let us know. In the meantime, let's talk about what we're not expecting from Motorola at MVC. Yeah. They will, in fact, be there. Yeah, but we're going to be, I think we're covering this event, but there's going to be no new hardware, right?
That's what they're saying.
Yeah. That it's going to be more a press event about the purchase.
Right, which, honestly, I would love to attend. And this is another reason why I wish I were going this year, because this is exactly the kind of thing that I would love to attend while Tony and Jaime chase some more hands-ons of devices, because this would be a really cool thing to sit in the audience and actually get the context and be like, okay, now I want to ask some questions, and I can't ask these questions in any other venue, so let me do it here. But
because the story we heard of the Lenovo deal ended up being kind of fascinating, just how incredibly quickly it all came together.
Yeah.
And knowing Tony after CES, he's going to be like, we don't need to go there.
Yeah. Tony's not too big on events themselves. He likes to get right by those devices. So anyway, at least there is an event for Motorola there. I think I don't know if that's a first ever, but it's certainly rare. Motorola's presence at MWC has historically been quite slim, so this is entirely thanks to the Lenovo acquisition, no doubt.
Brave new world.
Yes, indeed. Stephen, we do have a ton of rumors, though, from HTC as we kind of gear up to possibly receive this sequel to the One. Why don't you tell us about some of these ridiculous Photoshops and what you believe in them or don't?
Yeah, there's been a lot going on. So we started off the week with a leaked photo. It's supposed to be the back of the M8. And
this thing, Taylor, you saw it, right?
The back one? Yeah.
Yeah, this thing, like when that went up, I was like, someone is playing a joke. This looks like someone played Portal on the HTC One. Stephen, what? You had the primary camera, and then there was another smaller one above the G-string line?
Yeah, and we got a double flash next to the primary. But it's, like I said, it doesn't look... right? I don't know. It's like someone took the HTC One, the original one, cut it up, and then pasted all the parts back together in a way that would sort of make sense in light of those oddly shaped cases we've seen.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just looking at the thing. So has anybody done a deep analysis of this from a Photoshop perspective? Is there any word in the first comment is brilliant. Someone has photoshopped 9 cameras on the back of an HTC One. That's hilarious.
Double sun power.
Yeah.
And then an HTC exec himself popped up on Twitter a few hours after this guy showed up and was like, someone's been up to some Photoshop work, which is, I think, closest we're going to get to a official denial that this is actually the M8.
Yeah. Where did this one come from? The back one. This is from HTC family _RU.
Yeah.
So, yeah. When I saw the watermark in the thumbnail, I was instantly like, oh, is this an EvLeaks thing? And I'm like, oh, no, in fact, it's not. It's not from... So what's the track record of this leaker, do you know?
I don't know. It's pulling up now. They have about 360 tweets. So they're not, when they just started overnight. But I haven't, heard of anything significant coming out of this guy. This is not ringing a bell.
Yeah. Anyway, that's not all there is to it. Then we saw a shot from around front, right? And this one is most certainly a 3D model or a Photoshop, right?
It does not look right.
Yeah, none of this looks right. So, like, we're buried in HTC rumors, but none of them look real to me. It feels like we're talking about the S5 again.
And now we got, it popped up last night, this new screenshot supposed to be the M8's home screen. This one is coming from AppleLeaks.
Yes. Now, I've seen that one, and that one looks, I don't know. Taylor, what do you think?
Everything is starting to look the same in a different way, and I don't like that.
You mean between Windows Phone, Galaxy's, Samsung's Magazine UI, the Blink feed boxes, like everything's getting boxy and square and flat?
Yeah, everything. Do we have that on our site, or is that?
Yeah, we do.
There it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks a lot like Magazine UX.
It does.
A lot.
Yeah. And we have the new HTC buttons along the bottom, right?
So is Google about to get angry at every major Android OEM for not matching with its vision of Android?
Well, it's a good question, but I just wonder if HTC is big enough for them to worry about, for Google to worry about it,
No.
Their feud with Samsung was a big deal because Samsung was big enough that they really could have caused some serious heartache, but I think HTC is just worried about keeping its head above water. But I got to admit, I'm with Taylor on this. I don't necessarily really like the look of this, of that Blink feed view as it is illustrated there. Of course, you can customize Blink feed, and I'm sure you can probably get rid of that kind of dead spearmint tone if you want.
Yeah, and get rid of that guy's face because he kind of looks like Edward Cullen. I don't remember Robert Pattinson or whatever.
I don't know. Well,
you gotta get rid of that.
We're going to get answers to this soon, right? I mean, HTC isn't making any announcements at MWC, I don't think, but we got to be seeing something on this official soon.
Isn't that what we were told? I thought we were told to expect something at CES. Not at CES, but from someone at CES.
MWC?
Yeah.
Well, there will be press event. There won't be there'll be media there, but I don't think they're going to announce anything.
There hasn't been any invitation yet, at least.
Yeah.
That's where they announced their last two flagships.
What? No, that's not true. HTC announced the HTC One at a dedicated event in New York.
In New York, yeah. They had those OG...
the One X was at Mobile World Congress then.
Okay.
I know that for sure.
Okay.
Years ago.
But a keen eye...
Eons ago. Go ahead.
Keen eye here kind of picked up... Was that you, Steven?
Yeah, it was me.
Yeah. See, why do you sound so glum?
What are you talking about?
Well, I don't think it's a reason to place a lot of doubt in that. I just wanted to point this out. So what we're talking about is there are some artifacts in the image that make it clear that it's been manipulated. What it looks like happened is that some person identifying information was blurred out, but then rather than blur out the quick launch bar and the virtual Android buttons, which have been an issue of contention, especially with that last those last two images, because it didn't look right. They were sliding in and out of place. I think this is how it actually looks, but the icons have been then pasted back on top of the blurred out area. So this is kind of like a cookie cutter put together from various things. But I do think it is how it's going to look, even if it's not a 100% legit screenshot.
Right. It's been recomposited because some identifying information had to be blurred. Yeah, right. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
I didn't see the blur behind it, so I just thought...
This looks like something HTC would do. I'm getting a little worried as I look at this stuff, guys, and I start to think that, wow, this looks a lot like some of the stuff we've already seen from HTC. I mean, the company lost a couple people thanks to that scandal where wasn't it one of the lead software designers selling information to
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. But also last spring, there were a bunch of people just walking out.
Yeah, that's right. I think those were not on the. I think those were more on the communications team and the But the loss of one of these head designers. I really hope that there's not brain drain happening. I really hope that what we don't see in the next couple weeks, whenever they make this announcement, is essentially like a Galaxy S4 was to the S3. Where it's this kind of incremental upgrade, or a better example, the 5S to the 5 or the 4S to the 4. I don't think that that's something HTC needs. I think they kind of need to blow us out of the water on this, like they did with the One. But then, of course, it didn't help. I don't know. What do you think?
One thing the screenshot seems to imply is the resolution would be 1080p. So they're not going to blow us away with a 2K display.
Right, and that's okay. I think you can still survive with quote unquote only a 1080p screen.
But the first major OEM to do that is going to get a lot of recognition just for having that, whether or not it's worth.
That's true. But look what LG LG has done that. What was first on the G2? Or
720p was the Optimus 2 was they had the first.
LG has a lot of firsts, and
they do,
it kind of doesn't get them.
You're right, it doesn't get them anything
ground. Yeah.
They were first with 3D, 720p, dual core.
Yeah. They're it's not insignificant stuff, but I think that despite all that, and LG has gained ground, I think recently, but I think that's thanks to their work on the Nexus stuff and. Well, if you ask me, their work on the G Flex, but nobody agrees with me, so whatever.
keep pushing it, though.
I'm trying. Hey, by the way, I've got this G Flex AT&T version, which I sort of reviewed for us very briefly because I reviewed the original one. And Taylor, I have to say publicly here, I understand what you're talking about now. The display on the SK Telecom one was not as bad for me, or I didn't think it was as bad as you did. But the one on this AT&T one, man, it's like one of the worst displays I've ever seen.
What? Is it a different panel?
It's horrible.
I don't think it's a different panel. I just think that because it's a new manufacturing process, thanks to the curve, they are having some real trouble maintaining consistency. Exactly. So this one has like a big old blue stain for over half the screen, and the graininess is even more pronounced, and the burn-in is nuts.
It literally takes like
seconds.
2 seconds.
Yeah.
2 seconds, and you flip to another screen, and you can still read the text.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So if you like, to put it in perspective, if you're using voice transcription and you dictate a text to it, bloop, and you're like, okay, here's my sentence, and you hit the button. By the time the keyboard comes back up, you can still see the outline of the Google microphone on the keyboard for about 3 or 4 seconds.
Is gaming even possible at all, or does the ghosting make it just ridiculous to see anything?
Thankfully, it keep gaming stuff. If the graphics keep moving, then it's fine.
It's only things that had been static and then go away.
Exactly right.
For 2 seconds, and it's only when it's going from a dark color to a lighter color.
I can't believe it. I mean, it's so bad, and I want to go to the store, the AT&T store, and just kind of compare side by side and see, because I know it's a batch problem. I know the SK Telecom one wasn't quite that bad. So, anyway.
Well, the one I have, which one is that? That's SK Telecom.
It is, but you and I disagreed about the extent of it. So I think if you saw this one, Taylor, you would just basically cry.
I don't know. This one's really bad.
Worse. Do you still have it?
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay. All right. Let's move on. Let's keep talking about LG actually, because the G3 is rumored to launch earlier in the year than the G2 did. Why is that, Stephen?
Better to compete with these guys coming out in the spring.
Specifically the Galaxy S5, right?
Yeah. And a couple of rumors have been talking about this idea of a launch in May. This new one was a little less specific, saying May or June, but it seems like there's a lot of consensus that we're not, waiting till IFA again this year.
Yeah. That sounds great to me because I would like to see what they bring. Do you guys think, speaking of the Flex, do you think that they are far enough along now in their development of that screen technology? And do you think that people would buy it if they made the G3 basically a smaller curved Flex?
I would like that idea, but I don't want to see another flexible phone until OLED is better. It's so bad. I don't want to harp on it too much, but it is just, it's not there yet.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. But wouldn't it be so wonderful to see? I think we could put up with it a little better on a smaller display because it wouldn't be as evident, first of all. The ghosting would, so the ghosting has to go away. But the graininess of the image would be reduced. 720p on a 6-inch screen is way different from 720p on, say, a 5.2-inch screen. Say they use the same size as the G2's panel.
But the rumors have been, of all these flagships coming up, the Galaxy S5, the M8, and the G3, I think the G3 has the best chance of actually getting a Quad HD display, which would sort of end this conversation about a flexible screen right now. I don't think anyone's talking about doing flexible 2K at this point.
Very, very true. Yeah.
I mean, flexible right now is in 720p, and it's got issues at 720p. Not small issues like we had with 720p panels. Big issues like we had with it's worse than the Galaxy Nexus display.
Yes, it is significantly
far worse.
Yeah, and that was a bad display.
Yeah, so you pull up something white, and if you don't have your brightness at 100%, it looks like a really milky gray.
Oh, lovely.
and burned parchment, and you can actually see subpixels. You can see like red, green, blue, little tinges. Yeah, it's bad.
And it took them 5 years to get to this point. And it's not just the display, but of course the batteries. It took them 5 years of development working across multiple branches of LG Corp to actually build the Flex. So I don't think we can expect a giant leap in performance in just, 5 months?
Yeah. I forget, have any of you guys seen the Galaxy Round in person?
No.
I haven't.
I wonder if it looks a little better than LG's display here.
Probably.
Samsung's been making flexible displays for a long time.
Yeah,
we've seen them at CES.
Yeah, every year there's something.
So I think I'm pretty sure that display's got to be better. Like pretty much anything's got to be better than the G Flex. But for people wondering why we didn't cover the Round, we kind of had to make a choice. The Round came out first, but we knew the Flex was coming right behind it, and I don't think that we could afford the time to cover both of them because we had some other stuff to cover. So I was like, we've got to get the Flex because the Flex makes a lot more sense to me.
It's a lot more commercially focused anyway.
Yes, sure. The Round was just kind of a proof of concept, but. So
You're a proof of concept.
I am a proof of concept. I'm an unproven one, too. Moving on to Sony before we try to close out the Android category.
Do we want to finish up some of this M8 stuff or other HTC stuff that we skipped?
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to skip that. Yeah, the front-facing cameras might be high-res, right? The front-facing camera, singular?
Maybe a 5-megapixel.
Maybe a 5-megapixel front-facing camera. Now, I wrote an editorial about that over a year ago. Something
Pro or con?
I think it was one of those BS ones where it was like, would you use a front-facing high-res camera? Like, I don't know. For me, I don't know, you guys can speak to this. The HTC One already brings me what I need in a front-facing camera. It's wide angle, so I can get the shot.
Lens, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I need. And what is it? It's 2-megapixel, right?
Yeah.
I don't necessarily need to take my selfies at any higher resolution than 2-megapixel, but maybe I certainly wouldn't object to a 5-megapixel shooter up front. I think it would be a good idea for them to differentiate
everything
themselves.
else being equal, why not have it?
I would rather devote the resources to bringing us an ultra-pixel camera that's not 4 megapixels.
Yeah, that's the bizarre thing. Yes. What happens if this is 5 megapixel up front and only 4 megapixels around the back?
Then I give up and I walk away because no, not again. Taylor?
Yeah, I don't take selfies because I don't like the quality of front-facing cameras.
Is that right? So you're on the exact opposite side.
Yeah, like I'm not going to take one because they're so bad. That's my stance. Like I don't want to take bad pictures.
So if they were better, you would take one.
Maybe.
Huh,
but
maybe.
I can count the number of selfies I've ever taken probably on one hand.
Stephen, tell us about the HTC tablet rumors, and then we'll get the hell out of here.
Yep. So they're saying that HTC might be the next OEM to get in bed with Google for a Nexus device, specifically a tablet that could be launching sometime later this year, late summer, early fall. We've been talking about HTC maybe getting back into tablets for a while now, but it's weird doing a Nexus out of the blue.
Yeah, some commenter, Patrick, says this better than I could. At every Nexus iteration, we always hear rumors that it's going to be made by HTC, yet none of them have come true. Yet. And that's true, and that's sad. But then again, I think of an
Except for the
HTC...
next comment. Except for the first one.
No, but not a tablet. Nexus iteration. But okay, I get what you mean. Yeah, except for the first one. But can you imagine, though, an HTC-made tablet? They would have to do it out of aluminum, right? Because that's their thing. But do you want an aluminum tablet?
Oh, I don't think that's necessarily a sure thing.
No, it's not a sure thing. They could do it out of plastic, but I wouldn't want them to do it out of plastic, but I also wouldn't want them to do it out of aluminum.
But I can definitely see them going the cheaper route here and being a little unsure, or just manufacturing-wise. I mean, they're not used to building anything larger than smartphones. They're just dealing with, we talk about all the efforts. In a while now, though, and all the effort Apple goes through to make those, unibody chassis perfect, milled out of a solid block of aluminum, that would be a pretty big thing for HTC to live up to.
Yes, it would. And I would be concerned that they would go the One Max route where, yes, it's aluminum, but because of the removable back panel, it feels hollow and cheaper, and it's got that plastic rim. I don't want them to go that direction with it. If they make a tablet, it's got to look and feel great. Or, guys, what would you think if they went back to the One X style, like that polycarbonate that's really, really nice and smooth?
I would be totally happy with that.
That'd be fine.
Me too.
But the Samsung... the Nexus 10 right now, it's all plastic, and it feels
touch.
Great.
Yeah, it's tacky,
it feels
right?
Awesome. It's a fingerprint magnet, and lint sticks to it like nobody's business, but it feels and looks great. And it has front-facing speakers. Yay.
Yeah, and that HTC would bring those.
Oh, yeah.
Off topic, but how upset am I that the red Nexus 5 isn't soft touch?
I bet you're pretty upset.
It's like the white. I'm pretty upset. That was a pretty phone.
Yeah, well, they can't do soft touch in the multicolors, or I guess it's more expensive to do that, because that's always the case, right? You get a nice, cool, soft touch black phone or whatever, and there's and you can get the white one. Oh, sweet, I want that. Oh, it feels like crap.
Why did you have to bring that up? Now I'm on Google Play looking at the red Nexus 5, trying not to buy it.
God, you know why that's not in the rundown? Because who cares? Everybody but me. That's the answer.
It's
Everybody
Valentine's
but me.
Day, Michael. You need a red phone for Valentine's Day.
You know what?
Brandon doesn't care. He says it's ugly.
It is ugly.
I don't think so. I like it. I like it.
I haven't even looked at it. Let me look at it. Nexus 5.
It's ugly. I haven't looked at it.
I mean, I've seen the renders. We reported on Nexus 5 from Google. Nexus 5, 32 gigs in red. I click the button. It comes up. What do you know? It's bright red, and that's gross.
I like red. You don't like warm-colored phones.
I don't like warm-colored phones. It's true. I think
you shouldn't even be able to comment here.
Because you're a cold-hearted man, Michael.
That's right. So
it's because you have a deep-seated hate for the South. That's what it
is. That's what it is.
We have warmer temperatures, and this makes you think of the South.
Do you know what? I actually missed the South. I was just missing the South yesterday, in fact, and today.
And you told me to move to Boston. I said you moved down here. And
then I said I'd spend enough time in the South. It's true. I spent 7 years in the South. I did that already. It's not because I hate it. It's because I'm bored of it. I'm done.
We'll all split the difference, move to Baltimore, and be miserable.
Oh, my God. No. Baltimore's like my least favorite city on the planet. That's not
true. I've been there for 7 years. I can complain about it.
Wait, do you live in Baltimore?
I did for 7 years.
Oh, you did for 7 years? See, I lived in Virginia for 7 years. Look at what we're doing. I bet everyone is very fascinated by this. Can we talk about Sony real quick?
Virginia's not the South. Get out
Virginia
of here.
Virginia was the capital of the Confederacy, you frickin'...
Baltimore is deep South. Mason-Dixon, baby.
Yeah. Get out of our face, Taylor.
I'm saying, technically. But when you talk South...
And when you talk, if you're talking deep South, we're talking Georgia, kind of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Not North Carolina, first of all. But anyway.
There's a lot of that here.
I mean, I know that. But anyway, listen, let's talk about Sony. It's not related to that, but that's good. The Z1S, is. What did we hear time and time again at CES, Taylor, from Sony at the Sony event? The Z1S has what?
The best camera experience on a waterproof smartphone.
Exactly.
But there was a pause there.
It's the best camera experience. And we're all like, what? On a waterproof smartphone. Oh, okay.
Is not a link to the right story.
Oh, really? Did I link that wrong? Okay, I'll fix that. Thank you. Sorry. Fix link. So anyway, we got the Z1S in. As usual, we don't get terribly prompt review devices from Sony, but they had us on the list to their credit. They were trying to get one to us. But T-Mobile was able to jump in and send one to us, and I'm sure they regret it now. Not because our coverage isn't good. I had a wonderful time whipping up some underwater shots with the Z1S. Took some great footage.
With the submarine.
Yeah, with the
Whipping
submarine.
Is a very...
Shut up. With the Enterprise crashing, with the koosh ball floating. I had a lot of fun taking shots with the Z1S. Guys, I got to tell you, it's a very cool experience taking photos with the Z1S. I mean, the viewfinder matches exactly the experience on the NEX F3 that I used to shoot all my stuff. Like they do a very good job of bringing those interface components over to the smartphone side. The digital stabilization is beautiful. As long as you're looking at the display head on and not from a degree or two off to the side, that's gorgeous. The whole experience is fun. And then when you get the photos off the phone, it's really not as bad as it used to be as far as the color mottling and all that kind of digital noise until you get into low light. I made an error in that I thought the autofocus module movement was OIS. It is not OIS. It is digital stabilization only. But T-Mobile's press materials also were quoting OIS, so that was an error on their part, but also I should not have reported on it until I was sure, so I apologize for that. And secondly, another commenter is saying that the digital noise in the low-light shots, which is really, really pronounced, is a result of the intelligent auto mode. I'm sure that's true.
Oh, he suggests turn it off, I bet.
Right, and he suggests going into manual settings and doing that, which I planned to do today. But unfortunately, what happened, which you'll know if you watched the video of the Z1S camera test, when I dropped it into the pitcher of water during my intro...
The phone, yeah.
Yeah, when I dropped the phone into the pitcher, it landed on the bottom of the pitcher. Despite being cushioned by the water's drag, the impact jostled the USB door free, the door opened, the phone flooded. And despite what's now going into 36 hours of trying to dry it out, it was all right to begin with, and now it's really not. So... that's unfortunate.
Upsetting, yeah.
Yeah.
And you got to think that this is going to happen all the time in regular usage. I mean, people aren't going to double check that all their ports are super duper secure before getting the phone wet. This seems like a failure in that mode shouldn't destroy the entire device. This should be planned for.
If you do, it's not. By the way, it's not like a question of carelessness. It's that I closed every door on the thing. I made sure, and then dropping it less than 6 inches. I think it's actually 4 inches.
I would say.
Gingerly into this pitcher of water, it was enough of an impact to open up a door and flood it. So what happens when you drop this thing into like your pond by accident in the backyard,
or just get splashed with a little force? Well,
that would be a lot of force. But say there's riot police outside and they've got a fire hose. I mean, No.
What we're saying is, if you're going to claim a phone is waterproof, you at least need to have some sort of nano coating as well. That should be a standard thing.
But no, I think that they did actually claim that, I think, because the headphone jack does not have a flap over it, so that can free flood.
Yeah, or it would be physically possible to have a USB port that isn't exposed to the rest of the phone. It can be sealed off and still have the electrical connections going through it. You could have one that could be fully exposed without any special coating.
Like a pogo connector thing, or like a magnetic connector. Well, they've got the magnetic port on the side.
Not even that, just metal through plastic. It'd be
sure.
Watertight.
Well, in any case, don't. I want to make it clear that the phone is fine if all those doors are closed. It really doesn't have a problem with that.
But they got to stay closed.
They got to stay closed, and so you don't want to jostle this thing when it's underwater, is my point. Anyway, that's the story of the Z1S. That's a shame. And Taylor, the new king of prepaid, why don't you tell us about the Boost Max? I want to know what it's like. I don't think we've ever reviewed a Boost phone, have we?
I haven't.
And why are we reviewing this one? Boost Mobile, for our non-American listeners, is a prepaid brand in the United States.
I think we need to start with the question: where are you at, Taylor?
Ooh. I like it.
Be heard. What's their new thing?
I am very interested in hearing, Taylor, why we're reviewing this one, because we saw this device already. It wasn't called the Iconia, though.
No, well, yeah, it's not that. It's called the Iconic Phablet, which I
6 of 1.
Yeah, which I incorrectly called the Iconia Phablet in my video probably 4 or 5 times yesterday.
Yeah.
Dozens of times when I was recording it, and then as soon as I'm starting to upload the video, I went to tag it on the post, the shell post.
Why is this not coming up?
I thought we had a hands-on video with this. Where is it? So I searched it, and nothing came up. And then I'm like, oh, it's Iconic. But yes, this is the U.S.-specific version of the Iconic Phablet for Boost Mobile here in the U.S. Same specs, looks pretty much the same. And, it's $299. So it's a good price on a big phone. But basically, I'm doing a comparison later today with the Note 3. So I'm comparing this super high-end Note 3 with this low-end entry-level phablet. And
are people asking for that? Is that are people looking for that?
you can get a phablet for $800 or you can get one for $300. Is it a value at $300 in a phablet?
That makes sense. That's a completely legitimate question. Yeah, I get it.
So that's what I'm doing later. So far, it seems okay. It has a Snapdragon 400 in it, a 720p 5.7-inch display, and there's some quirks already. Like when you switch home screens, the icons completely black out and then they pop back in.
Oh boy! So, of all the ZTE devices we saw at CES, this was probably, I think, universally agreed upon as the least impressive, right?
Yes, by far.
Right, but it's the first one we were getting, and
what? The one that fell apart in my hands.
That's right.
My Lord.
But so like the ones we're really looking forward to seeing, the Nubia 5S and the Nubia 5 Mini, still not in our offices, but ZTE is getting them to us as soon as possible.
I better be getting the 5S, and you better be getting the Mini, because that's the one.
Yeah, that's not happening. You're getting the Pebble Steel and that secret thing, and and I have to sit here and deal with other stuff. So no,
that's your own fault.
Yeah, you know what? No, it's not. It's not. Anyway, I told Steven I wouldn't keep him more than 45 minutes. We have to keep going. I want to tell you that the Boost Max, what I'm more interested in, Taylor, is if you can derive any wisdom or any perspective from using a prepaid device for a couple days.
I also wanted to throw in here, because it popped up on the news yesterday, but it didn't seem interesting enough to talk about. Boost has a new deal on its plans where there's a unlimited LTE for, I think, $35 a month.
Yeah, which is crazy.
But it's only good for like 6 months or something. But still, that's
nuts. But then, of course, speaking of time passing and Boost, like the longer you stay on it, the lower your bill.
Oh, right, yeah. They knock it down.
Which is awesome.
So it starts at $55 and then it goes down $5
every month?
I think every month, yeah. So to a minimum of $35, I believe.
Which is just crazy. Now, my questions are, Taylor, do you have Sprint's LTE coverage in your area?
We do. Right now, I've had this phone since yesterday around this time, maybe a little later. And I have not had more than 2 bars anywhere.
Yeah.
But we do have Sprint LTE here in Charlotte, and it's around this area, but I'm not picking up much of anything right now. I'm on 1 bar of 4G, which that might even be WiMAX. Have they cut off WiMAX yet?
Yeah, they're refarming all that stuff, and they're still. I don't know if it's all shut down nationwide, but I know it's the spectrum is being used for LTE.
I know Charlotte was among the very first to have WiMAX. So, but yeah, I'm just sitting here teetering back and forth between 3G and 4G, not LTE. 3G and 4G with 1 bar.
Yeah. Roger that. Well,
and they make it very clear because the 4G logo is about 300 pixels tall.
Is it the star one, the North Star, the pointy thing? Is it
no?
It's just 4G.
It is just giant lettering. You can see it if you open up the piece. You can see how big the 4G logo is. It's huge.
Oh my!
4G LTE, it is literally like.
They really want you to know that. Oh God, yeah, that is big.
It's so big. Like some of the comments are like, "Why is that so big?" I don't know.
I know. Wow. There's a joke to be made there, but we don't have the time to make it. Let's move on to Windows news, shall we? This is the big news of the week, and I must admit, I don't know what my feelings are on it. Microsoft has finally announced its replacement for Steve Ballmer as CEO. And that is going to be Satya Nadella. Stephen, can you tell us a little bit about where this guy comes from in terms of internally at the company?
If I knew more about that, I could tell you. I know he was big in their cloud services, but he's been around for a while. I think 20-some years he's been at Microsoft, so really bouncing around in a lot of different capacities.
We reported on Jaime reported on him on January 31st. That
he's one of the names that arose late in the rumors as a candidate, but
he's been heavily involved in products like Office and Bing, and is currently focused more on Microsoft's consumer products and also its cloud computing business.
There you go.
I think he used cloud computing quite a bit in his statement for the new direction of the company. So
that would make sense.
Yeah, what were you trying to say, Tyler?
Yeah,
I was actually speaking to someone who has a friend who works at Microsoft, and they were talking about this guy. I was talking about this guy a few weeks ago.
This guy. Look at Taylor.
This guy.
This guy. I'm all chummy with Satya Nadella. Hey, this guy.
Yeah, this guy.
Yes, what of the gentleman, sir?
His friend who worked at Microsoft was talking about how this guy is just kind of like a go-getter. And has just jumped from high position to high position and kind of made a name for himself inside the company. So
that makes sense. You want someone at the top who's been around and knows how all these individual groups are working, I suppose. I mean, Microsoft's always got a lot of flack in the past for sort of putting its individual, they're not divisions, but the teams, they sort of been pitted against each other, and it's been kind of a confrontational workplace we've heard of. So maybe he can change that and smooth things over.
But I'm wondering how big a change this will actually represent, because a lot of people have speculated that
adversarial, that's the word I was looking for.
There you go. That's a good word. But a lot of people have speculated that though Ballmer was the CEO all this time, quite a few strings were being pulled behind the scenes by Chairman of the Board Bill Gates, who's now going to step down as Chairman of the Board, but that doesn't mean he's stepping away from the company. In fact, he's becoming more involved. He's becoming the new founder and technology advisor. Of course, he was always the founder, but technology advisor.
I'm going to become the founder of that company.
I'm going to apply for it.
It's a position that means he will spend more time at Microsoft. Now, I think in the comments, largely people are seeing this as a good thing, but honestly, I would need to know more about the internal politics of the company to know more about this. But if indeed it is true that Gates has had a pretty significant hold on the company and a significant voice in its direction over the past decade, and I don't know, guys, is that a great thing? I don't think that the company is certainly still buried in money, but I don't know that its mobile positioning is terribly compelling, and the future is mobile.
Fresh blood might be the right idea.
But as long as the fresh blood isn't tainted by, I don't want to say old blood because that sounds gross, but you know what I mean? By old ideas.
No, yeah.
Modern UI.
Yeah, I don't feel. Right. I don't want it to sound like I'm coming down on Gates. I'm just kind of speculating here because a lot of other people are speculating, and well, if you are not speculating, then what are you doing? Really,
you ain't living.
Yeah, you ain't cheating. You ain't trying. Shall we move on to iOS, or do we have another point to make here? Yeah, we move on to iOS.
I was going to say hold the Nutella jokes because they're not funny.
They are not funny.
Are we skipping the treasure tag?
Yes, I'm sorry. I updated the rundown without telling you. You can refresh it. Treasure tags. We speculated and asked where they went, and then they showed up.
Weren't here? No, they didn't. They weren't here before. Still not here.
Still not here. Okay, never mind then. Goodbye. You can put things on your keychain, and it's annoying. So iOS.
So totally lost. I have no idea what's happening.
It's all right. Neither does anybody. Let's get this Woz thing out of the way. Everyone's been talking about it. Crazy. What did he say, Taylor?
He said Apple should make an Android phone. Like, of all things. I love Woz. Like,
me too.
Because he started this company. He started this basically a technology revolution along with Gates and Jobs, and he bowed out of the company, and he still comments very, very frequently about what Apple should do and what they, he has a very realistic look at Apple because he was once inside, and he can say, I would do things differently because at one point he probably did, Mm-hmm. One of my favorite quotes from him was actually on Siri, and it was how he used Siri before Apple bought it, and it was amazing. It was great, and then Apple bought it, and they dumbed it down, and it doesn't do half of what it used to.
Interesting. I hadn't heard that.
Yeah. There's an interview with him talking about it, but he has this very different approach to how Apple should do business, or a different idea to how Apple should do business and do things, and I kind of tend to agree with him on a lot of points. This one is probably the first that I've heard him say that it just doesn't really make sense to me. Like, business-wise and in terms of the market, yes, but as far as Apple ever actually doing something like that, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, Apple would never do something like that.
No,
at least I don't think so, yeah.
I think the reason I included in the rundown is to ask you guys basically, like, would you buy one? Because historically we've said the iPhone is a very, very well-made piece of hardware, which I think if you can only dispute if you are just looking for a fight. It's really well-done hardware. My problem with it has always been iOS. So what's your take on that? Would you buy an Android-powered iPhone, Stephen?
Man. I'm not sure. I'm trying to find a reason to say yes so I don't come off like an Apple hater here. But I can't help but shake this feeling that they're going to find some way to iOS-ize Android, to lock it down in some awful way, remove the ability to sideload or something.
But let's be honest, this is Android.
Yeah.
So there's always a way around. But for me, I would get it. And one reason, photo experience. Image sensing, camera, all of that. Because I love the camera on the iPhone. I carry an iPhone basically as a camera. Actually, I carry an iPhone and it is pretty much nothing more than an Instagram tool.
Huh.
Yeah, because it's the only way to use Instagram without getting jagged lines all over everything.
And it takes so much better pictures than the Moto X. So much better.
Well, yeah. It's not a terribly high res.
No. But I mean, also every other Android phone I've used in the past.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess if the iPhone 6 comes out and it has a bit of a larger display so that I don't feel quite as cramped on it. By the way, I was using my father's iPhone yesterday because I was trying to get a boarding pass on there for him for his flight, and man. Does anybody on this podcast right now have the 5S? No, right?
No.
Yeah. Well, I'm really interested in hearing from people who've used the 5S and have used Touch ID as an authorization replacement for the iTunes, for the App Store, because what a pain, man. Like, it's hard enough for people like us to remember passwords sometimes. Taylor, that's why you use LastPass. Stephen, your memory is probably better than mine. But
I don't use passwords.
See, there you go. Why? Because they're a pain, right?
Yeah.
So the replacement of a password in the App Store with Touch ID makes so much sense for us, but that translates like 100 times, or that applies 100 times to older folks. Not calling my dad like a decrepit old man or anything like that, but like he can't remember passwords to save his life. And so every time I try and download a new app for him, I'm like, Dad, what's your iTunes password? It's like, oh, it was this, but then it was this, and I changed it. And Apple doesn't help. It doesn't make that experience any better. Like, every so often you get logged out, you have to re-enter your iTunes password, then you have to agree to the 34 pages of terms and conditions. And it was just a horrible, horrible experience on the App Store every time I have to use it, thanks to the password. So I'm really interested in hearing if Touch ID does indeed eliminate the headache as it promised to, because I hear that you still have to use your password every so often anyway.
Yeah.
Why? Is your thumb going to change? I don't know. Maybe I'm short-sighted. It could get some more character. Let's talk about Sapphire. That's much more interesting to me. Sapphire. Jaime Rivera reports that Sapphire, which does sound like an exotic dancer's name, you would whisper like that, is a major component of. Thank you. Is a major component of Apple's new factory in, where is this? Arizona? Yeah.
Lovely Mesa, Arizona.
Yeah, and this isn't a surprise. It's not that. This was reported on weeks and weeks ago that this facility is made for cooking up sapphire in a manner similar to the process we reported on months ago when I visited the factory down the road here in Massachusetts and made that fun video. That was a good time to do. But Jaime is writing this story from the perspective of new iPhones. I don't see that. I mean, I think this thing is completely exclusively for the iWatch. What do you guys think? I don't think they're going to put a sapphire on an iPhone. I mean, it shatters too easily. It doesn't shatter easily, but it's brittle. It's less flexible than comparable glass. So I don't see them doing it on the iPhone.
I dove into this last week, I believe it was.
Yeah.
Kind of the Sapphire versus Gorilla Glass 3 thing. And there were a lot of reports saying that Sapphire is actually far less resistant to shatter than Gorilla Glass. Now, that doesn't make sense to me because it's harder.
No, it's less. It is.
Yeah,
it's
harder
more brittle.
Generally makes it more shatter.
Right.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I know that, but there was some kind of professor that said that he tested the strength or something. I don't know exactly what it was. But either way, that's kind of my thing. Like, I wrote about that. I'd rather have a Sapphire display than a Gorilla Glass one if it's not going to scratch, because I've never actually cracked glass on a phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's much rarer to smash some glass than it is to scratch it up, and I agree.
But I'm also kind of thinking that if we're talking about the sort of damage that a watch versus a phone might be exposed to, your arms are generally swinging side to side as you're walking.
Yeah.
This is flailing around there. I think there's a much larger chance of that getting forcefully banged against a hard surface than your phone. So it might make less sense to put sapphire or something more prone to shattering on the watch.
That's a good point.
I totally agree with that because my Pebble is my Pebble is battle scarred.
Mine's got like paint on it because we've talked about this on the show before. Like when I first started wearing a Pebble, it was the first time I'd worn a wristwatch in ages, and I didn't realize that I like took turns really tight around door frames.
Like I take them so tightly, like I can hear like the wind, but from the wall, I'm like around the corner.
Yeah, and then when your wrist hits it, like your wrist is about what, maybe 9 or 10 millimeters thicker with a watch on it. So it's like, bam! Oh crap!
My wristwatch right now has a sapphire crystal on it, and I am hugely paranoid walking around with it. Afraid that it's going to hit a doorknob or something. But also the side effect of that, having it for a few years now, the rest of the body, in this case it's stainless steel, has been picking up a lot of little scratches, but the crystal itself is perfectly fine. So we're going to see this weird damage curve if Apple goes this for the iWatch, where the plastic or whatever material body gets dinged up, then there's this suspiciously perfect looking face in the middle. It's weird. I mean, I'm saying it's bad that it does that, but
like a real life Photoshop job. Well, maybe they'll make the casing out of neutronium, and it'll be fine.
See, the difference between the sapphire crystal watch faces watch.
It's going to be thicker.
Screens they're much thicker than a smartphone screen because they can afford to be. They can be. I don't know about a smartwatch, but in a normal watch, they're probably 2 to 3 times as thick as a normal.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Fascinating. Well, I hope that they use them to make iWatches, and that takes us into wearables and takes us out of the show. Apple apparently hired a sleep expert for the iWatch project. Now, this is largely speculation. The hire is not speculation. 9 to 5 Mac reported this, that Apple brought aboard Roy J.E.M. Raymond from Philips Research, and it turns out his main expertise is sleep research. So maybe there will be a new functionality that tracks sleep even better on the iWatch, the so-called iWatch.
Yeah, Apple's been doing weird stuff with the software on this, if we're to believe all the rumors talking about the health focus and bringing in not just the sleep guy, but other experts from fitness-related fields and holistic, self-improvement. Doing a lot of philosophical work into designing the iWatch, I think, more than they have for necessarily the iPhone or iPad.
Saying Apple is turning into the Dharma Initiative.
Well, this is something that's going to be on you all the time. You have to think about it in these terms. Plus, it's not something you pick up and put down.
Right. It's a new form factor, too. Yes, they've done the special cases for the iPod Nano, but that's not really a watch. Yeah. It's a carrying case. Like, if they are making this thing,
and
which everyone
thank God Apple made that Nano wristwatch. Otherwise, we wouldn't have any image to use for all of our iWatch stories over the past year.
That's a good point. We'd have to use a bunch of like Knight Rider and Star Trek images. Yeah. Well, I'm excited to see it. It's going to be very, very cool if this comes to pass soon, but it might not if this is all true and they've just hired this person. So let's see. iWatch is rumored to launch sometime in 2014, and could be the end of the year.
I believe it when I see it.
Yeah. Well, that's a good policy at all times. Stephen, I've kept you for much longer than I promised. I'm sorry.
You jerk.
I'm a jerk bag. Thank you for joining us, to the both of you. We're going to move into the feature here, but before we do that, I want to say goodbye to both of you and good mental health.
Whatever.
Taylor Martin, as eloquent as always.
Our guest this week is not an industry insider, an analyst, or even a blogger. He is my friend, my source for all things Droid DNA, and my one-time would-be business partner. But that's not why he's on the show. He's on because he's planning on leaving his wireless carrier. Not because of high costs, or coverage, or apathetic customer service. He's planning on leaving because of ideology. because this is interesting to me, I decided to have him on to ask him about it. Chris Larson, welcome to the show.
Hey, Michael. Thanks for having me.
I am really, really glad that you're on the air. I feel like I mention you about every other podcast. I'm like, my friend with the Droid DNA said something similar.
Yeah, I remember I got mentioned for dropping it on its corner the first time, and I got let in the sleep.
Yeah, you completely destroyed the display. Yeah, I remember that. Well, you've actually been a real champ on that phone. You've held onto it for a very long time. The Droid DNA, the phone released before the HTC One, sort of immediately before it.
Yeah, thanks, HTC.
Yeah, great timing. But that was because of their special deal with Verizon Wireless, right?
That's right, and I still have no complaints about the hardware, but for Verizon.
Yeah, it's not a hardware thing that we're worried about this time around, right? It's this Verizon Wireless deal. So let me just recap the facts here. You're planning on leaving Verizon Wireless. Is that still your plan, or you were? Is it still the truth?
I am. So I am test running service on T-Mobile for a month while I have my Verizon account sort of deactivated for the meantime.
Okay, so you're on you've put your Verizon account on hold, and you're trying out T-Mobile USA. We'll get to T-Mobile in a little bit, but why are you planning on leaving Verizon Wireless?
I am leaving Verizon because basically I believe in net neutrality, which is, to sum it up succinctly, belief in a free and open internet where access providers don't favor traffic to and from certain websites or services. Verizon.
That is rather succinctly summed up. Yes, we talked a little bit about this on the show 2 weeks ago when this news broke, when the FCC suit was when the result came out. Right.
That's right. So Verizon was the only carrier in the end litigating that suit against the FCC's implementation of net neutrality. Now, I don't think that the FCC's version of net neutrality was built on the best legal ground. I have training as an attorney, just as background.
Yes, just as background there.
Verizon was, they showed that they were going to go to the mattresses to get rid of things like that. And it's important to me that I not financially support a company that's going to actively fight against my the freedoms that I believe in.
Yeah, some of the background on this is that back in, I think it was 2002 or so, the FCC had a chance to categorize internet providers like AT&T, like Verizon, and others, wireless and wired, as common carriers, right?
That's right.
And if that had occurred, then we would be treating them today like a utility. Like water and light and such, and
electricity, gas, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so then they would be more regulated. And the upshot of all this is that at the end of the day, what this new ruling means is that essentially the FCC does not have the power to enforce the limited rules it did set down. Is that correct?
That's right. Now the FCC may still have the option to treat wireless providers as common carriers, but it looks like the current chairmen are not interested in exercising that. So it's kind of up in the air for now, at least based on my limited understanding. But, from my perspective, I don't want to support a company that's actively going to fight against it, and Verizon's pretty much the only carrier that did that. So
well, I mean, I know AT&T has gone on record, not on the wireless side so much, but the AT&T as a company has also voiced its strong support of the Verizon stance. I think a lot of them are, but explain why that's important to you. I mean, why do you care about net neutrality in the wireless space or in general?
Well, I'll try and narrow it down a little bit, but basically the internet is a place where so long as you have access to it, you can get anywhere and provided you're not in countries that have restrictions, whatever. But basically you can get anywhere very quickly, and you're not limited to what you can find and see and experience. And that's a dramatic change from kind of the concepts of property that we have, like land or resources and things like that. So I think it's a really cool, unique environment. And if we start letting people prioritize how we access that, like, someone made a deal with Netflix, so they'll get Netflix really quickly, but that means that their Amazon Instant speed is going to suffer, or, various things like that. If we start letting companies or people or whoever dictate how we access that, then a lot of the freedom of sharing, the freedom of expression that we see in the internet, I think is going to go away. And I really don't like that, because the internet has brought us some beautiful, it's brought us 4chan and other things too, but it's brought us some beautiful things simply because of that freedom of expression. And I think seeing that curtailed would be one of the biggest tragedies we could ever inflict.
So I've been looking a lot at the various companies' stance on this. AT&T's, because I was kind of speaking in vagaries before, AT&T's official position is that it will continue to abide by the existing rules. CEO Randall Stevenson said, was quoted in BizBeat blog, the Dallas News business blog, as saying that we will continue to abide by the rules, and I don't see it affecting much in the short run. So, of course, this is a long-term game, as all kind of regulatory administrative stuff is. But my question to you, Chris, is that you are moving to another carrier on the wireless side, T-Mobile USA, and how are they better from a policy standpoint? What have they said about this?
So T-Mobile basically has been a much more consumer-friendly company, and actually T-Mobile recently merged with Metro PCS.
Yeah, they bought them, right?
PCS.
Yeah,
that's right. And Metro PCS was initially also a litigant in this suit against the FCC, but after T-Mobile acquired them, they put the kibosh on that. So
really,
that's been as concrete a step that T-Mobile just doesn't actively want to get involved in that fight, as I've seen from a carrier. And that's enough for me to feel comfortable giving them my money, at least for now.
Now, I mean, that's sure. But how do you know that wasn't a symptom of the merger? It's just, how do you know it wasn't something as benign as, well, we don't need two legal teams, so we're going to lay off the Metro PCS legal team, and because they were working on this, we'll just maybe we'll join that suit later, but we'll just put it off for now until the merger is done. I mean, how do you know it wasn't something like that? Well,
basically, you can't rejoin a suit after dropping it. The legal system doesn't quite work that way. But,
I see.
You can't just hop on board. You kind of have to be up there from the outset.
Have to be both feet on the boat or not at all.
Right. Yeah, but I think it's a fair point to say that maybe they just decided that Verizon had the funding and was going to crusade enough to go for it. I mean, you're absolutely right. I don't know, aside from T-Mobile, being the uncarrier and saying all the things that they've said to try and be consumer friendly and taking all the steps that they've taken recently to try and be consumer friendly. I just am kind of looking at that in the aggregate with them withdrawing from the lawsuit, and that makes me feel comfortable enough to give them my money. And frankly, there are not that many alternatives. So they're the kind of the lesser of all evils in this situation.
Yeah, I think T-Mobile has not necessarily offered too much comment on this. In a piece from The Verge earlier this month, it deferred to the CTIA when asked for comment on the Comcast, Verizon, and other kind of stuff. So
yeah, and if you listen to AT&T and Verizon, they're saying that they're advocates of an open internet too. So deciphering the language, the PR speak of all the carriers is kind of an exercise in futility.
Right, and that's the thing, and that's kind of the broader issue here. I mean, net neutrality is a massive thing, but it's only one cog in this multi-point issue of how carriers are perceived by the public. And T-Mobile right now is in the middle of a massive reinvention, right? So how much did all that factor into your decision? Like, I mean, you could have gone to Sprint, right? Because Sprint hasn't. I mean, Sprint's bigger and they have a bigger wireline presence. So they've even had some ex board members who became FCC chairman. So they're probably deeply in bed with the government, but I don't think they've been as vocal as the bigger carrier. So why did you choose T-Mobile? Was it because of their branding push?
Maybe that's it. Maybe I got suckered in by their sort of uncarrier marketing. But I mean, it was a combination of, I think, just seeing the active step of withdrawing from that lawsuit, kind of the uncarrier whatever, the fact that they're being extremely consumer friendly, and the fact that, to be blunt, they had a plan that made a lot of sense to me.
Now that's in the same vein of a follow-up question I wanted to ask you. You're going to see some cost savings from this move, right? Because everything's cheaper than Verizon.
That's in the long term, I will, but actually, my plan was covered through November. So, by going to T-Mobile now, I'm paying for that myself. So, in the short term, in the next 10 months or so, I'm going to be footing a bill which I previously didn't have to take. But yeah, the plan that I'm switching to is only $30 a month, and which is a significant savings from the 50 or 60 that my line was before.
What if it was more expensive? I mean, would you still leave Verizon if your only alternative were, say, an equal amount more expensive?
I mean, I think, yeah, within reason, yeah. I mean, we all have to kind of have wireless service in this day and age, right? So yeah. I think I would definitely be willing to pay like a reasonable tax, quote unquote, in order to support a carrier that I felt better represented my beliefs and, wouldn't be going to court to actively fight them.
So this is why this is one of the reasons I was interested in asking you about this, because do you think you're alone in that? I'm going to like preface this by saying I do.
That's maybe probably true.
Because I mean it's just a question of people generally leave carriers for what? For cost issues, for coverage stuff, for how it affects them. But I mean, what do you predict others following this path because of a policy shift?
I can't really presume to know what other people are going to do, but this just made a lot of sense to me and seemed like a really simple way of, money is speech, right? Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, there's the way that all the many court rulings have gone recently, but this is a way of making sure that my speech is being put at least moderately in a channel I believe in. But so that makes sense to me, and I would hope that if people start understanding how carriers and other service providers like broadband providers like Comcast and things like that want to shape the internet, then that it would make sense to them too.
One would hope. Do you think? I just wonder exactly. Of course, this landscape is going to be changing in the future, and we'll probably see a lot more media exposure to the idea of what exactly this net neutrality kind of stuff is. And a lot of people have gone into depth talking about the differences on the wireless side versus wired. NPR had a great piece on it recently. Mm-hmm. So it's a changing landscape, but it's just interesting. I found it interesting that you decided to switch this early, and I wonder if I would ask you whether it were because you wanted a new device, but no, because
device envy grabs us all the time, but
you're using the same phone.
That's right. I had the luxury because the DNA is based on an international phone, the J Butterfly and Butterfly, that it actually weirdly had a GSM radio in it. So why the heck not? But it's been an experience.
Well, and that's going to be one of my final questions here. You've gone from the biggest carrier in America to the smallest in terms of subscribers, and I think in terms of coverage. So how has that shift been like? How long have you spent on T-Mobile? Has it been about a little less than a week now?
Yeah, it's like 6 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's it been like? How big is the sacrifice? I want to know. This is obviously confined to the northeastern United States and greater Boston specifically, but I want to know, in that little microcosm, are the rumors true? Does size really matter that much on the side?
Frankly, it does. I'll be honest. It's been pretty rough.
Really?
Now, and that's partially because I'm going off of an LTE network. The DNA supports Verizon's LTE bands, and going to T-Mobile, it only supports 14.4 HSPA.
Oh, okay. So you don't have any access to T-Mobile's LTE network on your DNA, of course.
So if I had something that had T-Mobile LTE, maybe the service would be better, but the handoffs between 4G, 3G, 2G, yes, 2G, have been kind of adjustment. Yeah, I see that little E over my service bars more often than I'd like. Especially underground, obviously, that's going to be coming more, but my phone also has a tendency to get, once it hits edge, it has a tendency to stay there for a little while. So
I don't think that's unique to your DNA. That happens when I come above ground on pretty much any AT&T phone I have. It'll grab an edge signal first, and then it'll hold on to that even when I'm like standing under an LTE network, cell site. It's like, okay. But yeah, if you cycle through airplane mode, it'll do it. Well,
exactly. So that's a pain in the butt. Now, and I do have the advantage of I was on a capped plan before, and now I'm on unlimited data, but I'm not going to be able to really take advantage of it. So
that's a good point. Unlimited data is only useful if you can use it, right?
Right. Exactly. So, but that's I'm letting my being spoiled by Verizon's admittedly awesome LTE service kind of get better.
Let me provide a counter. Let me provide a counterpoint to that. I have been using a T-Mobile device that can access the uncarrier's LTE network here in Greater Boston, and it's the first one I've touched in about a year, and a T-Mobile device, and they really have stepped up their coverage here. I didn't used to be able to get connection in my apartment. I get it now. I get it in the office. I even get it in the sound booth. And while I haven't tried it in many subway stations, I have been able to use the thing effectively as effectively as an AT&T device. I've been able to stream high quality stuff over Spotify and watch Netflix over T-Mobile's LTE. So I think if you get an LTE device, you'll be quite a bit surprised, as I was, by their network build out.
Don't give me excuses to do a hardware upgrade. I've got.
I know you don't need them.
No, but you getting that Moto X recently has really been like, maybe I should do that.
Maybe
I've
I should jump on
watching
that.
Moto X and Nexus 5 comparison videos like crazy lately, and I've just been like,
Yeah. Well,
but maybe that would help a lot.
Say it didn't. Say you were stuck with the coverage experience you're getting now with T-Mobile. You're still on a trial period. You can still reverse this change.
I don't think I'm going to.
No, so you would stick with it. You would stick with the decreased coverage and performance just to get away from what you perceive as the wrong policies.
Yeah, I think that's right. And honestly, the difference in the money that I'm going to get to Verizon, because I'm going to early terminate to do this, is going to be $250. So, as far as a monetary statement, it's not a huge thing, but it's meaningful to me, and it means that even if it's only that much, that's that much less of my money that's going towards something that not only don't I believe in, but is actively against what I politically believe. So it's important to me.
Do you see yourself that may be a slippery slope? Do you see yourself in a year or so joining like Credo Mobile, so that your money really goes to a place that you know where it is?
Who knows? That's one of the great things about going to a prepaid plan is that if I find that something else lines up better, I'm not locked into a 2-year contract. So we'll see. I'll keep my eyes open. True enough.
Well, good idea. I thank you, Chris Larson. I know we have limited time with you. I really want to thank you for coming on and sharing your perspective. I would hope that maybe you will have incited a discussion among our listenership. And listeners, if you have some feedback, leave them in the comments, because we're very, very interested in hearing what your thoughts are on this and whether you've switched carriers based on an ideological concern versus just coverage or any of the other myriad reasons you might change. So.
And maybe your listeners have done better research than me and know a carrier that would be even better in line with things. So,
aside from the big four, they're all MVNOs, right? So then you have to do even more complicated money tracking, because the carrier is doing this, but then the carrier's paying the operator to use its network. So what operator is that? It's like, oh my God.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Layers upon layers, my friend. Like an onion.
Like an onion, yes. Folks, my friend is Chris Larson, mobile enthusiast extraordinaire. Chris, thank you so much for being on the show with us briefly today on the Pocketnow Weekly.
Thank you so much for having me. You are actualizing a dream. I love it. Thanks for letting me have my 2 cents.
That's going to do it for this episode of the Pocketnow Weekly. Thanks to Chris Larson. Thanks to the news team for joining us. And thank you, folks, for joining us. And again, thank you for all your listener mail every week. We love it. And even if it doesn't make it to the airwaves, which it didn't this week, we do read every piece sent to us at podcast@pocketnow.com. Also, be sure to find us on Twitter. Our special guest is Ryan... Also, be sure to find us on Twitter. I am Captain Two Phones, Taylor is at Casper Tech, and Stephen Shank is at Stephen Shank. You can also follow Pocket Now officially on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Google+. It's Pocket Now. And you can share opinions with other listeners online at forums.pocketnow.com. And finally, if you enjoy the show, which we hope you do, please leave us a review on iTunes, Xbox Music, Stitcher, and wherever else podcasts are heard. Thanks as always for listening, and we'll be in your ears again next week.
So how are my levels? Because I can't adjust gain.
So what does it matter how good your levels are? I mean, like, if you can't change... So I can't do anything about it, but how do I sound?
What do you think about this? Is this good?
Yeah.
You like this level?
Place the entire thing in your mouth is what the sound. Marvelous.
What a gross podcast. Do not make garbage truck noises at the beginning of our podcast.
Sorry, I just saw a cement truck drive by.
You're trying to communicate with it.
But anyway, let's talk about shit. Steven, are you using a new mic?
No, does it sound better though?
No.
Yeah. I don't need to get one.
Perfect. Okay, let's enjoy ourselves. 3, 2,